My name's John Storey. I've been a freelance illustrator for the whole of my working life. I never knew I wanted to be an illustrator until I started at college. I always wanted to be an artist of some sort. In the type of school that I was attending, to be doing art was not seen as a particularly macho thing to do. It certainly wasn't seen as any sort of career path. Something you did as a hobby, not something you actually made a living at. And coming from the sort of very working class background I came from, I never thought that was going to be a possibility until I met a school teacher in the sixth form who just recently, in fact, become a teacher, having left college, and recounted his experiences to me and said, "You can do it, you can do what I do." And that really changed my life. From then on, I decided that I would try. I didn't really know what would happen. Time at art college in the 60s, having left sixth form in a comprehensive school, it was just wonderful because you were then with like-minded people. Of course, with the freedoms comes all the other things that go wrong. You know, too much drinking, too much sex, drugs and rock and roll, if you're lucky. But I was always a worker, and my friends were workers. There are those people who play and those people who work, and I was nerdy enough to be one of the workers. I'd certainly get drunk and go chasing girls at the weekend, but only up to a certain extent. Once I'd actually met my future wife, things changed again. That side of life was taken care of, if you like, so I didn't have to worry about that anymore, and could devote myself to doing what I wanted to do, which was drawing and painting. So a lot of certainly the drug taking in the early 60s did tend to pass me by. Although I had friends who were quite heavily involved in it, I wasn't. I became a freelance illustrator by saying I was a freelance illustrator. You phoned people up in magazines and newspapers, wherever you could find someone's name, and said you were a freelance illustrator and could you go along and show them your portfolio. And in those days they'd say, yes, when do you want to come? And you'd make an appointment and you'd duly go up on the train and just meet them and chat to them, show them your work. If they liked what they saw, they hopefully gave you a job. You saw a lot of people who didn't, but being very fortunate, I saw somebody in the first 6 weeks who did. It was all black and white line drawing because that's what reproduced very well. So you had to have a style that worked in that manner. Colour work was far less prevalent. Nowadays you don't very often get asked for black and white work, but in those days it was just staple. For the first year I only did one colour job in the whole of the first year I was working, and probably not more than 2 or 3 a year after that for a very long time. In the time that I've been working, there's been huge changes in illustration and in the way that work is produced, i.e. the introduction of computers. When I started work, computers were things in rooms attended by men in white coats. There were no such things as personal computers. But of course, over the years, as computers became more available, one realised that you were going to have to deal with this technology. And I was also very interested in it. A friend who used to live round the corner was an early taker-up of computers. And I went round there a few times and drew on his drawing program, which was the very early version of Paint. So you can imagine how good that was, especially drawing with a mouse. You could see that there was something there that it did it differently. It was a new media that you weren't ever going to do anything professionally with, but it was quite fun to play around with. And then a few years later, I got my first Mac. By that time, it was starting to be important that you understood it. It was mainly for type in the early days. It made using type in any sort of design work so much more flexible. I would simply do the drawing, print the type out on paper and paste it on to the drawing. Things move on to where we were 10 years ago. You realise that yes, you do need to understand and use the medium. So it just becomes a progression, really. The thing that moved it on for me was getting my first drawing tablet, and suddenly that made actually working on the computer possible in a way that using a mouse just isn't if you're a drawer. That made a big impact. I still prefer pencil and paper and paint because that's just my generation. I teach as well, and I tell all the students that that's fine, you can do it that way, but you have to know the computer. And it's amazing, I do come across young people who don't want to use the computer, find it intimidating, and I always tell them that they don't have a choice. The computer is a tool like any other tool, and you just have to use it in the way that seems to work for you. Drawing itself is a more expressive medium than the computer. For me, doesn't deal with it as well as traditional media. My advice to anyone thinking of starting a career in the visual arts is exactly what I say to my students at college. You need to work at it. Talent will only get you so far. It is a skill and you need to perfect it like anybody else. You wouldn't expect a ballet dancer to be able to work in the National Theatre without having years and years of training, and the same thing happens with an artist. I know that I'm a far better artist now than I was when I started out. I've so many more skills and ways of working, and just the whole background of doing it that comes with experience. And the only way to get that experience is to do it. And it isn't just mechanical, it's intellectual as well. You have to learn about other things as well. Art history is terribly important. You need to know what's gone on. You need to understand the flow of artistic ideas. Even if you're not a fine artist, you still need to understand that, and you need to be engaged. I'm obviously at a retirement age now. I haven't retired. I have no intention of retiring. Actually, since I first started doing this, my ideal is to drop dead at my desk, having just finished the latest drawing. That would suit me fine. I can't think of a better way of going. Even if I'm not actually working on a commission, I continue to paint and draw because that's all I do. That's what I do, that's all I've ever done, and that's all I've ever really wanted to do, which I thank my lucky stars that I've been lucky enough, blessed to be able to do that all my life. To earn a living at what you enjoy doing is just marvellous. When I've got work, I don't think, oh bugger, I've got work. I think, oh great, I've got work. However mundane and tedious some of the jobs have been, and there have been some real mechanical, doing it just for the money jobs. There's always an element of pleasure in them, and well, I'm sure it will. I can't see it ever not being now. You know, however long I've got, I will continue to do it while I can hold a pencil. Can we cut now? Or cut that.
No, that's staying in.
I can keep going for hours if you'd like me to.